Hello everybody, how are you? This is the third session of Nutrition Grade 10 of the year 2019-2020, term 3. We are talking about the role of carbohydrates. We reach a part, function of carbohydrates. We finished the first function of it. So we will revise together. Function of carbohydrates, mainly, we have three functions. First one, carbohydrates provide the body and our brain especially with the energy or the needed energy. Second part, that if we are taking enough amount of carbohydrates, we are sparing protein, and also if you are taking the suitable or adequate amount of carbs, we can help in fat metabolism. First thing, we want to go through the digestion of carbohydrates. Digestion of carbohydrates starts in mouth, where we have pH of the mouth is about 7. We can consider it as a neutral medium. Certain enzymes called salivary amylase that is secreted by certain gland in our mouth. Salivary gland secretes salivary amylase, which is an enzyme. Wherever we are seeing A's, then it is enzyme. It will start to digest starch inside the mouth into a simple polysaccharide. It will still polysaccharide, but it will be simpler than the first one, and also it will digest it into a certain type of disaccharide. It will the digested saccharides will go through the digestive tract, where digestion of carbs will stop in stomach, and then it will continue in the small intestine, where certain enzyme called pancreatic amylase will continue in digesting the carbs or the saccharides into last form, which is the monosaccharide, and monosaccharide can be glucose, galactose, and fructose. At the end of the digestion, blood will carry the digested carbohydrates, blood will carry the monosaccharides, and it will circulate through our body to provide the energy needed by cells to function well. Digestion of carbohydrates, it may take up to 20 minutes. Second function of carbohydrates, that it spares protein. How it spares protein? We know that the main function of carbohydrates is to provide energy. What about if we are not taking enough quantity of carbohydrates, or we are following a diet that's low in carbohydrate, or we are cutting the carbohydrate at all? Our body will look for another or alternative source of energy, which is protein, for example. In this case, if our body lacks of carbohydrates, it will start to break down proteins. It's good that our body has its own backup plan to provide energy, so the body can function well. But in this case, breaking down protein will lead into too much problems. One of them is losing protein mass inside our body. We will lose certain functions, like our body will not be able to contract well, or to maintain the muscles and other body tissues. For example, if athletes or certain people who will go through an intense exercise, they need to take a certain source of carbohydrates, and we prefer that they can take complex polysaccharide or complex carbohydrates. So our body will take a time to digest it, and also it will provide the body with the energy needed by muscles to contract. If you are not taking the enough quantity of carbohydrates, then during the exercises or during the normal activities, our body will start to break down protein. This is the second function of carbohydrates. We can conclude that we should take adequate amount for our body to function well, unless we are wasting or we are losing the body mass or the body muscles. Third function of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, it helps with fat metabolism. Maybe you are asking how it helps in fat metabolism. If we need to burn fat, then we need energy to start burning fat. If we do not have glucose, or if we do not have carbohydrates at all, then the process of burning fat will not be in a good manner. What does it mean? It means that if we are following, for example, keto diet, or if we are following a strict low carb diet, the metabolism or the breaking down of fat cannot proceed normally, and then it will start to form ketones. We know that our energy, or the first type of energy inside our body, is glucose. And in case we do not have glucose inside our body will start to digest fats, and in a normal way to compensate the shortage of glucose. If we have a sudden shortage in glucose or carbohydrates, our body will not be able to start the fat metabolism in a good manner. It's okay if we are following keto diet, or if our body is forming ketones, then we are losing extra weight, or we are losing the fat mass inside our body. It also good for people suffering from diabetes, cancer, or certain type of diseases. But we should know that ketones are acidic molecules. When they are broken down from fats to provide energy for our body, ketones will be inside our blood, and it will lead to a certain condition called ketosis. The pH of our blood, it tends to be basic. Ketosis is the situation where we have acidic medium because of the ketones. This will turn the blood into acidic medium, and also it might it leads on to certain conditions like headache, dry mouth, fatigue, a unique smell for our breath. That's why we recommend to take an adequate amount of carbohydrates so we can generate the needed energy, we can keep our mass, or we can keep our muscle and protein, and also we can help in fat metabolism. Of course, if we want to assess the metabolism of fats, we should take the complex type of carbohydrates, not the simple one that would elevate or raise the level of sugar inside our blood. In the third session, we learned about the function of carbohydrates. In the fourth one, we'll start to know what will happen exactly if we have deficiency of carbohydrates.